A year later, Goro decided to take another shot at making a film after Tales from Earthsea with From Up on Poppy Hill, based on the manga of the same name by Tetsuro Sayama and Shizuru Takahashi. It's the story of Umi Matsuzaki, who meets and goes through the whole romance story with a boy named Shun. But then they discover one huge problem. Umi's father, who died in the Korean War, might actually be the same dad as Shun's.
That's nasty.
But while that's happening, the school clubhouse, the Quartier Latin, is about to be torn down to make room for the 1964 Summer Olympics. So now Umi, Shun, and the rest of the guys in the clubhouse must find a way to save the Quartier Latin. For the voices of the characters in the original Japanese version, Goro brought in Junichi Okada to play Shun and Aoi Teshima to play Umi's friend Yuko. Both actors have previously been with Goro to provide the main voices in Tales from Earthsea, with Okada as Eren and Teshima as Teru. Originally, Goro really wanted to capture the realism and the historical significance of the city of Yokohama. But the only problem with it is just that making something look real is one thing, but to make it look beautiful is another playing field. So instead, he depicted the city from the eyes of the characters, a place that's entirely covered with life. On March 11th, 2011, a great disaster occurred in the east of Japan. One of the biggest earthquakes that hit the country occurred and caused a powerful tsunami that traveled up to 10 kilometers. It would then hit the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant and resulted in a meltdown in 3 of its 6 reactors. It was an event that seriously affected the whole country, including what happened to Studio Ghibli. During that time, they were faced with a series of rolling blackouts, and to help minimize any delays in their progress, the animators would also work night shifts. The heads at Ghibli say that the animation was about 50% complete when asked by the press. However, without the disaster, they would have been more than 70% done. Goro did state that even if no one was really affected by the disaster directly, some did have to take some time in order to recover mentally. When it was released on July 16th, 2011, it really didn't do as well as the other Ghibli films, with just 6.3 billion yen at the box office. This was due to competition with other major films released at the time, like Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, and a double feature of the Pokemon film, Victini and the Black Hero Zekrom and the White Hero Reshiram. But in terms of critics, it actually went much better than last time with Earthsea, saying that it's gentle and nostalgic. From Up on Poppy Hill is one of Studio Ghibli's sweeter efforts, and if it doesn't push the boundaries of the genre, it remains as engagingly lovely as Ghibli fans would come to expect. For the first time since the deal in 1996, the English version was not done nor distributed by Disney. This time, Ghibli had to deal with G-Kids in order to release the film in the US, with award-winning sound designer Gary Rydstrom as director of the English dub, which was later released in limited theaters on March 15th, 2013. The movie would go on to be nominated and win several awards during the years prior, like winning Animation of the Year at both the Tokyo Anime Award and the Japanese Academy Awards, and was nominated for an Annie for Best Writing. Afterwards, Hayao Miyazaki decided to take a new step in his filmmaking career by taking his signature fantasy element on the side in order to make room to tell a kinda true biographical story with The Wind Rises. It's the life of Jiro Horikoshi, an airplane designer who actually existed and is known to make the Mitsubishi A6M0. Throughout his whole life, all Jiro wanted to do was to make airplanes, not for the purpose to help his country or because the pay was good, but because he has the enthusiasm of an artist and all he wants to do is to create flying pieces of beauty, even when the world was preparing itself for World War II. Like I said before, the project all began when Miyazaki was thinking of making a sequel to Ponyo, But his producer and good friend Toshio Suzuki suggested instead to make a movie based on one of his recent mangas, The Wind Has Risen. You see, back in 2009, Miyazaki made a short-lived manga that tells the story of a fictionalized biography of Jiro Horikoshi when he was making the Mitsubishi A5M in 1935 for Model Graphics magazine. The extra elements he added for the manga were dreamlike encounters with Jiro's hero, Giovanni Bastia Caproni, and some scenes taken from the autobiographical novel of the same name by Tatsuo Hori, where we also see his love life, which unfortunately ended with his wife passed away from tuberculosis. As for the title, Hori took a quote and translated from the Paul Valery poem Le Cimetière Marin. In fact, even the movie would often quote the poem as one of the central themes.
Le vent s'élève. It's a French poem.
Il faut tenter de vivre.
Speaking of the film, at first Miyazaki wasn't really too keen on making The Wind Rises, since he only makes mangas as a hobby, and there are some subject matter that aren't really suitable for kids. However, he changed his mind after someone suggested to him that kids should be exposed to things that they don't understand, which is really true when you think about it, but too bad this mentality only exists in Japan. Another reason why Miyazaki decided to make the film came from a quote from Jiro himself saying, "All I wanted to do was to make something beautiful." For the character of Kastrov, some speculate that he's actually based on the real-life Soviet spy Richard Sorge, since both were working undercover as a journalist and or against Nazi Germany. This is also evident by how Kastrov gave out secret information to the Germans' plans and how he ended up being arrested in Japan just like Richard. For the voice of Jiro, the heads at Ghibli were thinking of having a non-actor, someone who can act, but not an actor professionally. As a joke, they suggested animator Hideaki Anno, but the more Miyazaki thought about it, the more that it actually sounded like a good idea. So when they brought in Anno for the part, not only did he say yes, making it the first movie where he was acting, but also his animation company, Studio Kara, came to help with the animation. Originally, it was supposed to be in surround sound with all the airplane noises coming from everywhere, but Miyazaki thought that it would be too distracting to what's happening on screen and decided to keep the movie in mono. Once the film was complete and had its first screening, Miyazaki admitted that it was his first time that he cried when watching his own movie. When it was released on July 20th, 2013, the movie didn't make as much as Miyazaki's previous works with just 16.8 billion yen at the box office, but still counts as the highest grossing film in Japan of 2013. Also, the critics seem to have highly enjoyed the film, saying that The Wind Rises is a strongly artistic look at a man who has revolutionized Japanese aviation, with the beloved animation that only Studio Ghibli can deliver, a deep and powerful story, and realistically human characters. However, despite what the critics say, the movie found itself into quite the controversy with politics and anti-smoking groups. It didn't help either that Miyazaki added fuel to the fire when he publicly criticized Japan's Liberal Democratic Party for proposing to change the Constitution of Japan. Since Jiro Horikoshi was responsible for creating the warplanes used during World War II, some have accused Miyazaki for making a film that looks positively on a man that created killing machines. When Disney was taking charge of the English dub, Gary Rydstrom once again returned as the director, with a cast that features Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Jiro, Emily Blunt as Naoko, Martin Short as Kurokawa, William H. Macy as Satomi, and many more. The English version was released in selected theaters on February 21st, 2014, and then had a wide release a week later under the Touchstone Pictures label, since it did get a PG-13 rating. The movie would go on to earn several awards and nominations, some of them being from the big-name academies, including the Japanese Academy Awards for Animation of the Year, an Annie Award for Best Writing, plus 2 nominations for Best Character Animation and Best Animated Feature, a nomination for a Golden Globe for Best Foreign Film, and an Oscar nomination for Best Animated Feature, which it lost to Disney's Frozen. On September 6, 2013, after he was done with The Wind Rises, Hayao Miyazaki made a press conference to announce that he is officially retiring from making any more animated features. Yeah, sure. Just like how you retired after Princess Mononoke and Spirited Away. Come on, Miyazaki-san, what's your plan for the next movie? It's not like Disney will advertise The Wind Rises like it's your last movie. Oh. You're actually serious, aren't you? But we don't want you to stop. What are we gonna do with that? Oh, look at that! The Tale of the Princess Kaguya! It's the story of a bamboo cutter who finds a little girl in a bamboo shoot and decided to take her as his own. Believing that her and other surprises from the bamboo are divine gifts bestowed upon him, the bamboo cutter and his wife believe that she is destined to be a princess and heads out to the capital to do so. Now Kaguya must live her life as a princess by taking etiquette classes and dealing with suitors she doesn't like, even though all she wants to do is just live. Before the film, Isao Takahata had never worked on a movie since the 1999 My Neighbor the Yamadas. But you might be wondering, why? Did he retire? Did he go on a career change? Actually, it's because he's just so hard to work with. You see, Takahata hates working on cell animation. He always wanted to find a different way to make his version come to life. However, cell animation is what Studio Ghibli does best. They can't just make an entirely new system for creating their features when the old one is not only fine, but works extremely well. Because of his new system, the production of the Yamadas had been nothing but pure chaos for the animators, and the movie ended up becoming a flop. Thus, Takahata decided to call it quits. Ever since then, there had been plenty of producers who tried and failed to get Takahata back to work. But then came Yoshiaki Nishimura. He was determined to get another Takahata film out there, and the old director decided to do it after 18 months of convincing. Now, since Nishimura knew very well about Takahata's non-traditional approach, it's not like he could just go and get some of Ghibli's animators to work for him. I mean, I think everybody learned their lesson with the Yamadas. So he decided to go open up a new facility for Studio Ghibli with 80 freelance animators to make the film. So, with an entirely new crew at his disposal, what does Takahata had in mind for his next feature? Well, he decided to have it based on Japan's oldest folk story, The Tale of the Bamboo Cutter, and he wants the animation style to look like the storyboards of Osamu Tanabe coming to life. The catch? He meant that literally. Have no clean version of the animation and keep the sketches up on display. Another catch on Takahata's new style is to have the backgrounds be painted in light watercolor, which sounds easy at first, but the thing with watercolor is that it is much less forgiving than cells. It was even proven to be a major challenge for longtime Ghibli background artist Kazuo Oga. Heck, it was also tricky to do the coloring, where it could take up to 6 hours to choose the colors in one cut, in a movie that requires 1,423 cuts. As you can imagine, this is the kind of system that requires a huge amount of trial and error. But this would also come with a big problem. Originally, it was going to be released at the same time as The Wind Rises, a moment where it would have been the first time that a Miyazaki and Takahata film would have been released at the same time since My Neighbor Totoro and Grave of the Fireflies in 1988. However, because the production was way behind schedule and the storyboards weren't even close to be finished, the movie was delayed for the fall of 2013. In fact, there was a moment that Nishimura had to close down the facility so that Takahata and Tanabe could focus on finishing the storyboards. Soon afterwards, when looking for a composer, Takahata thought about having Shinjiro Ikebe to score the film. But then he decided to go with veteran Ghibli composer Joe Hisaishi. The total running time for this film is 138 minutes, or 2 hours and 18 minutes. This makes it the third longest animated feature ever, behind 1983's Final Yamato and 2010's The Disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, which are 163 and 164 minutes respectively, or approximately 2 hours and 45 minutes each.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
When it was released on November 23rd, 2013, it was unfortunately a flop by making only half its budget with 2.5 billion yen at the box office. But on the bright side, it did receive universal acclaim, with critics saying that by boasting narrative depth, frank honesty, and exquisite visual beauty, The Tale of the Princess Kaguya is a modern animated treasure with timeless appeal. On October 17, 2014, G-Kids replaced Disney again to be the North American distributors, with a cast that features Chloe Grace Moretz as Kaguya and Lucy Liu as Lady Sagami. It also has James Caan and Mary Steenburgen as the voice of the bamboo cutter and his wife, whom both previously played husband and wife in the 2003 holiday comedy Elf. The film went on to get several awards and plenty of nominations, including Best Music and Animation of the Year nominees at the Japanese Academy Awards, losing the latter to Miyazaki's The Wind Rises, 3 Annie nominees for Best Music, Best Directing, and Best Animated Film, and an Oscar nominee for Best Animated Feature, but lost again to Disney for Big Hero 6. Satisfied with making his magnum opus at the age of 78, Takahata can officially relax and mark this as his final animated feature. As the two co-founders finally made their last animated feature, it was the moment that when 2014 came along, Ghibli was about to face some changes much bigger than they expected. Along with the retirement of Miyazaki and Takahata, Toshio Suzuki decided to finally retire as producer and take on the role as the studio's general manager, with Yoshiaki Nishimura taking his old position. On July 19, 2014, they released another film by Hiromasa Yonebayashi called When Marnie Was There, based on a novel of the same name by Joan G. Robinson, which Ghibli did make a small profit from. However, it would be the final film that Yonebayashi would make with the studio before he decided to quit. Also, they teamed up with Polygon Pictures to create their first CG animated series, Ronia the Robber's Daughter, with Goro Miyazaki as the director, and the first episode premiered on October 11, 2014. However, going back a bit, on August 3rd of that year, the whole world went in panic. A Ghibli fan page on Tumblr revealed that Toshio Suzuki had a meeting and revealed that the studio is closing down. However, shortly afterwards, it turned out that Suzuki was mentioning that Ghibli needed some major changes due to the fact that they weren't getting as much profit as they used to, and that they would go on a hiatus from making any more feature films. At least that gave out a bit of relief. But you know the biggest problem with that was? The fact that people actually believed something they read on Tumblr. Seriously, who uses Tumblr as their news source? That's like ordering at a fast food joint and then you ask for a diet soda because you're trying to lose weight. But anyways, as it's pulling itself together during its hiatus, the studio is now taking time to work on smaller projects with Miyazaki, including some animated shorts for the Ghibli Museum. But no matter what the future holds for the studio, there is one thing that is certain. With all 3 of their founders retired from animated features, this officially marks the end of an era for both Studio Ghibli and animation.
You weren't even listening.
Nope.